This is one of a series of video tape presentations featuring Dr. Richard Bandler, co-founder, originator, and developer of Neuro-Linguistic Programming. Well, with me today, serving as narrator, is Michael Sajais. Michael, we've certainly been fortunate in having Dr. Bandler in this series, working with us and also working with three very important and I want to say courageous clients to come before camera and to expose to some degree a problem that they have, though in many cases we have found that Dr. Bandler can work with situations where we really don't need to know exactly what's happening. And perhaps that tells us something of the uniqueness of approach in neuro-linguistic programming in terms of how it deals with people. Could you speak to that?
I'd like to speak to a couple of comments you made, Bill. The uniqueness of this whole situation strikes me as being very exciting. To have Dr. Bandler here in the studio, to work live with people, to have the opportunity to do follow-up with them, to see how easily he makes it look as he works with people, working with very complicated human problems.
In fact, that's probably one of the things that is dangerous to some degree, that people shouldn't see this tape and think, well, anybody can do that, that they really should receive training in order to do this kind of thing.
I agree wholeheartedly. And to go back to answer the other part of your question, although the gentleman we're going to see in the present tape is working with a phobia, in many ways the uniqueness of NLP, since it deals with the structure of an experience, and specifically the structure of your internal experience, I don't necessarily need to know the content of the material. I don't have to spend a lot of time asking maybe embarrassing questions to the person about things that are difficult to talk about.
So you're really concentrating on process as opposed to content.
Talking about process, talking about structure. To me, one of the things that makes NLP extremely unique is being able to understand the structure of someone's internal experience. And by the structure, what I'm talking about are the images or visualizations, the sounds or auditory track, internal kinesthetic feelings that a person goes through, which creates their internal experiences and influences their external behavior.
How would that work in working with a person who has a phobia, as we're going to see Dr. Bandler doing in a moment?
One of the things that's unique is NLP for me is the first model that ever gave me a real indication of what's happening with someone who's phobic. Someone who is phobic has had some experience at some point in time that they may or may not remember. That it's like, it's the greatest example of one-shot learning. And you never see someone who's phobic of elevators get into an elevator and forget to be phobic.
Right.
It's like they have that one experience, and from then on, whenever they get near whatever it is that the stimulus that creates that anxiety or that unpleasant feeling, always creates an unpleasant feeling. The analogy I like to use is like a roller coaster. If you and I are sitting here watching a roller coaster go up the very first incline, we may be able to hear the sounds of the wheels as they click over the wooden tracks, and we may hear the people getting excited. And we may have feelings about that. But if you and I were to switch positions at the time that car reached the apex or the top of the first drop, so that you and I were sitting in the front car holding onto those seats as that thing went down, those are two drastically different experiences for us.
Yes.
And what's happening with the phobic is they're always in the front seat. It's like if you have certain memories and think about them, there's some memories that you have that it's almost like watching a movie. You see yourself.
So Dr. Bandler wants to change how
the perspective
of Lee as
in this experience
has this experience. Okay.
From being someone who's actively in an experience that's unpleasant, helping him to what we call disassociate, so that he can see the experience differently.
Well, one of the things about working with phobias, I'm sure many people who've had a phobia and practitioners who work with them, is that often it took a very long time to help someone with a phobia, maybe 10 or 18 sessions. One thing that's very unique about neuro-linguistic programming is Dr. Bandler is going to work with a phobic person here and hopefully bring about change in about 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things that allows him to do that is the fact that he understands the structure of the experience. You can take a particular discipline and you can try to find out when something started and how you feel about it and go through it and go through it and go through it. Or you can begin to understand the structure of that experience. And if I restructure it or alter it in some definite way, I most assuredly am going to affect how I feel about that experience. And as I restructure or change your position from one of being in an emotional experience that's overwhelming to being back and looking at something from a different perspective, I am surely going to change how you feel about yourself and the experience.
When people are looking at this videotape, we want to tell them that there is a manual that accompanies the tape that can have a number of helps for you and what to look for and how to understand the experience that you're going to observe. But Michael, as they're looking right now, what would you have them to look for?
I would have them look for and listen for a couple of things. One is to notice how Dr. Bandler works with this, how he gets to understand what specifically happens internally with Lee, how he creates this anxiety or this phobic response, and then to notice what specifically Dr. Bandler does to change the internal experience. And the other thing I would caution people about, and as we've mentioned on the other tapes, is Dr. Bandler makes this work look awfully simple and awfully easy. And although it can be, once you understand and learn the model, I think you would agree with me that we highly recommend that in order to really use this model effectively, one needs to spend time training with a certified trainer in neurolinguistic programming to make sure you know what you're doing. It's a very powerful technique.
Yes, it is. And now we'll see that powerful technique with Dr. Richard Bandler.
Okay, what's your name?
Lee.
Lee. What's your first name?
You're right.
Correct.
Correct, right.
It's one right answer you got so far. What is it that you'd like, Lee? You just sat and watched her go through that.
Well, I have, I guess you call it a panic attacks.
What is there something down here that's scaring the hell out of people? What is going on here?
A phobia, or what do you want to call it, panic attack. I have trouble getting outside the city limits when I do driving.
Getting outside of the city as opposed to coming in?
Yeah, well, no, just staying in. When I try to go out, that's when I have most of them, mostly.
Oh, well, that's different. I have panic when I go into the city.
No,
mine is based on the real experience.
Yeah.
Of course, I go to cities like New York and places in San Francisco. That's enough to get anybody to panic.
I would say yes.
Man, they have the hills there you wouldn't believe. Got to get used to the driving there. But I take it this is a little bit different because it's something. Does it happen right at the city limits, or do you kind of edge your way into it? Or
Well,
is there a sign that says you're now leaving the city? Panic, or?
No, just I guess I tell myself, you know, that when I get ready to go, you know, it kind of starts on me a little bit. You know, when I get
Even before you leave the house, huh?
Yeah, even if I think about it, yeah.
Even if you just think about it.
Yeah.
When you think about it, do you make pictures and talk to yourself? How do you think about it?
Well, I just, you know, if somebody mentions going somewhere outside.
Don't be vague. We're under time pressure here, you know?
When someone says something about going outside the city limits, going somewhere, I just, first thing I say is no, you know.
Well,
I can't, you know, make excuse, whatever, you know.
Does something happen in your head, or is that just an involuntary response?
Well, I guess now it's a response mostly, you know, but, it, you know, like I said, I take those panic attacks and stuff, and it bothers me, you know, so I just don't go.
Okay, well, if I were to suggest that after we left here, you and I drive out into the country, do you get panic when you think about that?
Well, if I know how to do it, yeah.
Well, you do. I test my work, you know.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, you know, like I say, if
this is the real world we're living in.
Right, true.
There's the only thing that could possibly have more panic towards could be my wrath. If you're, you know, as a client, I want to test your, you know, I've taken people kicking and dragging into elevators to test a phobia.
Just as if...
Yeah, just when they got in there, they discovered the only thing they had a phobia of then was me, and they were fine in elevators.
After that, right.
But I would just want to know how you get to the panic. Can you do it now? Think about going to...
Not really.
Sure.
Not like I could if I was in a car getting ready to, you know, go.
Oh, well,
Or
try it.
halfway there.
Close your eyes and pretend that you're... See what you would see if you were getting into a car, and you know what it looks like to drive out towards...
In the open spaces, yes.
Yeah.
just a little tingly feeling, nothing like, you know, what I really have.
Did you see yourself in the image?
Yeah, sitting in the car, yeah.
Well, okay, well, see
I
what
mean, you know, looking out.
looking out. Have you ever driven into the country?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, can you go back and remember it?
Yeah.
And when you remember, can you see what you saw at the time it occurred?
You mean when I had a panic attack?
Yeah, you got
Okay,
it.
well, I thought you meant before, you know. That
No, I want to go for the full tilt here. See, I don't know. I have people come in and lie about they have these problems. I mean, you know.
No, I can remember the first one, yeah.
Okay.
Very, very much so.
The very first one.
Yeah, right.
Take you by surprise?
Yeah. Yeah, I just turned Snow White, my heart beat 90 miles an hour, and I just felt like I was going to die. Thought I was going to pass out.
Was there any, you know, reason? Were you...
Not that I know of.
No deep psychological underpinnings to this, huh?
No. Not that I,
Just
know,
your brain went, all right, enough of
It's
this.
time,
and
yeah.
scared the shit out of you, huh?
Really.
Brains are like that. I have a theory about why. Did anybody ever tell you my theory about it?
No.
That's right. Well, my theory is the reason is because the world is tilted on its axis, 20 degrees. So actually, we each have someone else's brain, and it's pissed.
Okay.
That's as much theory as I get into. It's the extent of my theoretical underpinnings. Okay, but would you go back and remember, see what you saw and hear what you heard the very first time you had the panic attack?
Well, I just came out of my uncle's house and got in a car and started up the highway, and next thing I knew, I just
So I want you to do it on the inside.
do it on the inside.
I want you to actually see the same things you saw at that moment in time and hear the same sounds.
Okay.
Right up to the moment where you had it.
All right.
And do you feel it when you do that?
Not like I did, but I can
Well.
feel something, yes.
Good. Is it intense?
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted you to make sure you still had the problem. You know, sometimes people lose their problems, you know, because they're moving along in life and boom, it's gone,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, it's not like it was, you know, I mean, not like it's actually being out there. It's just, it's a funny feeling, you know, you can feel something that's telling you something there.
It's, what do you think it's telling you?
Well, it's telling me what I went through, you know,
Yeah.
or what I go through again if I do it, you know, I guess.
Maybe, who knows?
Right.
What do you think after watching her?
Well, very interesting, very, very interesting. Kind of makes you a believer, yeah.
Well, you see, the thing is I have a really good relationship with people's unconscious. I don't seem to get along all that well with their conscious minds most of the time, but I know a lot about how people learn. See, it's like if I reach out to shake your hand knows how to do that.
Right.
And after a while, it kind of does it automatically. And to think about what a pain it would be if you had to remember handshake. Right, all right, lift hand up. If you had to relearn it, so it just works automatically. So I like things to be automatic. And somewhere along the line, your brain learned to panic outside the city limits. Now, if your brain can learn anything like that, I mean, maybe it's trying to keep you here. It may have a good reason, but by the same token, there are other ways of doing that sort of thing. Seems like that would be kind of inconvenient, especially around here.
Very.
There's probably nice things outside the city limits. What's out there?
Well, a beautiful country, for one thing.
Oh.
Jobs, when you have to...
Jobs?
Yeah, when
Oh.
you have to travel, you know.
Oh. Well, maybe there's part of you that would rather you were poor and stuck in the city.
Well, maybe subconsciously, but not consciously.
Nah, I don't believe in that crap. Just can't buy into it. I know that we learn all kinds of things. It may have a function at one time, but after a while, I don't think that those functions, because I mean, imagine how many ridiculous things people learn that had a function at one time that don't anymore.
Sure.
I always remember that there was a guy in one of my training seminars for 9 months who was almost 7 feet tall. And he was a big man, but this training seminar took place in a room that only had 3 chairs and the rest were pillows and stuff. And it's one of those places where they did encounter groups, and I rented the room from them. But I had to sit in a chair. I don't like to sit on the floor. And one day he walked up and next to me, and he looked at me and he went, "Boy," he said, "I always thought you were bigger than I was." Because on the inside, he doesn't feel like he's 7 feet tall. He feels much more small than that, and it's like he had forgotten. And people can forget stuff like that very easily, you know. A lot of times people don't know that they've grown up. And so they kind of on the inside feel short and small and all kinds of stuff. And, you know, it's like however you acquired it, it really is a fairly amazing thing that you can remember to panic. How many times have you gone outside the city limits and had this now? Have you done it a number of times or just once?
Probably between 5 to 8 times.
How long ago this happened?
The very first one was about 2.5 years ago.
You've only tried it 8 times? How many ways are there out of the city?
Probably about 6 or 8.
Oh. See, I'm much more experimental than you. I would have tried all the different roads to see if you could escape.
Yeah.
Right. Because it may not be the road, it might be your car.
No, I have the same car.
Hey, do you take the same route all 8 times?
No.
Okay, good. Because there might be a sign out there that says, "Don't panic!" You
Yeah.
know, something nice like that. I had a friend that learned to have a marvelous thing because when he was young, somebody in the medical profession told him he would have to learn to live with something that was wrong with him or jump off the Golden Gate Bridge. And lo and behold, about 5 years later, they found a cure for it, which hadn't existed. And he found himself pacing up and down San Francisco near the bridge, feeling suicidal for no reason. Now, I'm sure the doctor had a good intention at that time, but the person was just suggestible and, you know, sort of stuck in there, you know. It was
Just kept it in his mind, yeah.
well, he did, you know, it was a big thing to him. But anyway, so tell you what I want you to do. Yours is a simple one. It's right up my alley.
Okay.
Nobody ever told you my favorite thing was, my favorite thing is phobias, because see, I'm not endowed with a great memory. I'm sort of an airhead in many ways, you know. I spend most of my life looking for where I just placed something. So what I want you to do is, I want you to just simply go back and remember the time you left. Was it your uncle's house?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay, your uncle's house. And you know what you would see if you drove. How far is it?
Probably about 7 miles.
7 miles, that's okay. And then wham, and you know the point at which the panic hit. Okay, because you can do it real fast in your head, you know. See what you would see at the time you were there and all that stuff. Only this time what I want you to do is just to run through to make sure you have the memory. Only I want you to see yourself in the memory, okay? In other words, watch as if you could fly next to the car. I anoint you Superman, right? Right. Seeing the expression on your face, I want you to watch yourself go through the experience.
All right.
Okay, now when you see yourself do it, do you have any of those same kind of feelings?
No, not really. I really don't. I see myself as a nervous wreck.
That's a bad word to use when you're talking about driving.
I know. I was a nervous wreck.
Huh? You didn't wreck the car, did you?
No, I made it home.
Okay, but you could have. But if you're not nervous, you won't have to. In fact, if you do get nervous, I suggest you get calm. Have you ever thought about that?
Yeah, I try to talk to myself and, you know, say, look, let's just calm down now here. Nothing serious happening. But, you know, it's when you're in one of those, it's kind of hard to get out of it.
Yeah, it won't be. Okay, now, this time what I want you to do is I want you, do it again, only this time do it from the inside again.
Just put myself right back where I was at.
Yeah, only, you know, this time you were flying a car. Go and do it from the inside this time. In other words, so you would begin to get those feelings that tell you that. You still feel it?
No, I really don't. I can think about it. I can picture myself, you know, how I got in the car and started out driving when it hit. But I didn't have that little tingly feeling I get when I think about it.
You didn't? Well, just to be sure, I'll tell you what I want you to do. I want you to see it from the outside again this time. I want you to run through it real fast. And when you get to the end, right, point just after you panic, the end of this particular memory, I want you to stop it as a slide. Okay. Then I want you to float so you would see, because you're not come from the outside of the car, I want you to float to the inside so that you would see what you'd see if you're there. And I want you to run the movie backwards till you're back at your uncle's house. You have to go all the way backwards. Because this is something that you really should do backwards.
All right.
Okay, now, once again, I want you to run through it. See if you can find some of that panic in there. Wouldn't it be a bummer if it was this easy to change it, and you spent 2 years?
Feel kind of silly, yeah.
Huh? Well, you know what? That's what nobody told you what to do. See, they go to school, you know, they even do this thing, you know, sometimes in schools. They tell you that you have to spell, but they don't tell you how. So a lot of people do it phonetically. You know phonics? Do you learn phonetics in school?
No.
Okay, well, you can't even spell phonetics phonetically. You thought about that?
No.
Whoever made up the name for that system did not take themselves very seriously. So when I went to school, they taught me to spell pahonically, which meant that there are a lot of words you can't spell phonetically. And then, you know, and the teachers can't spell well anyway, and so you go up and you go, how do you spell this word? You know, they always use the old cop-out. Go look it up in the dictionary. If I knew how to spell it, I'd look it up in the dictionary in the first place. But most people, they stop and make a picture of the word, say, and then they copy it down. I didn't know people did that.
I didn't either.
Yeah, that's what good spellers do. Say, now, why don't they tell you that in school? And in school, they didn't tell you, hey, you know, if you have a panic thing, you know, stop, see yourself from the outside, run through the things, make it into a slide and run it backwards. They don't tell you that. You know, if somebody came along and did it. I was thinking of writing a survival handbook, because I've decided that life causes death, and that living creates great difficulties.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have problems if you weren't alive.
That's very true.
That's, you know, suicidals have thought about that, but they have the problem in that it wouldn't bother them if it wasn't, see, they wouldn't object to it if they hadn't been born in the first place.
True.
Okay, go back and do it again. Let's see if we can get some panic out of you here. You're in big trouble. I'm getting warmed up here.
No, I can think about it. I don't even get that tingling feeling I usually get.
No tingling even.
No.
Oh, you can try harder than that. You can get to that tingling.
Yeah, all right, I'll try. No, not really.
Oh, come on. You want to be sure, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
well,
be positive.
why don't we go for a ride outside of the country?
Well, I'm willing to try.
Well, let's stop and think about it. You willing to try?
Yeah. Yeah. I just thought what I said, you know, I'm willing to try. Right.
Well, that's different. Good.
Yeah.
Well, we'll go for a ride here in a little while. I got a couple other little things I want to do, and then we'll go for a ride in the country. In fact, if it's only 8 miles, maybe I can get somebody to take you out in the country and bring you back here. You can tell those folks out there in video land.
Just how it does work, really.
Yeah.
No, I don't really, when I really concentrate hard about it, I can get a sensation about it, but it's not like actually getting in the car and going, you know.
Yeah, I know.
And I mean, it's just, I mean, I can't bring myself to
But you
real
told
shakes.
me that when people asked you to go, you always said, I can't.
Right.
You didn't say that because it's not true anymore. So we'll do that. Why don't we stop here and put it to the test?
It's been about 1 hour since Lee left the session with Dr. Bandler to go out and to see what would happen now with his phobic response of driving outside the city limits. And so he's arriving back in the studio to share what that experience was for him.
Okay, Lee has just come back here and thought I'd have you report. What happened?
Well, went out of the city limits, went out of the state.
You went out of the state?
Just across the bridge, you know. It's about 2 miles from here, 3 miles.
What bridge?
6th Street Bridge in Huntington to Chesapeake, Ohio.
Out into the country, then?
Well, not, it's out of the city limits, guarantee you that.
Oh, okay. It's out of the city limits.
It's a small town over there. And I even thought about crossing the bridge and everything, but...
How long has it been since you've been across that bridge?
4.5 years.
4.5 years. Well, what do you think about that?
I just can't believe it happened to me. It just don't, you know, it's like getting out of prison. You just, you know, is it really happening, you know? It's about what it amounts to, you know. But always before, when I tried to go outside of the city limits, I kept waiting for this panic attack. You know, sometimes it happened, and most of the time it didn't. This time I didn't even, you know, I wasn't waiting for it to happen. You know, I just went over and we came back. And I didn't drive where I could concentrate on driving. I just
How long has it been since you've been on a vacation?
Oh, gee, at least six, 7 years. But, you know, when I really want to take one, I can't. You know, we wanted to go to the World's Fair with my family.
Well, you can go now.
Yeah.
Is that where you're going to go, is the World's Fair?
If it don't close up, time to get down there.
How long is it going to run?
I think it's through...
They run it for a whole year, don't they?
No, I think it's over in October, I believe, isn't it?
Well, you better get in the car and get going.
Really?
Where else? How do you think, Sarah, what do you think is going to happen when you go home?
They're not going to believe me. So I take them somewhere, my family.
You're going to take them somewhere this evening?
Yeah, I believe I will.
Take them for a drive.
Take them.
You probably have to do that to convince them.
Oh, yeah, I will.
And then you probably have to tell them that you're tied to posts and nails were driven into your head. People don't think change should be very easy.
Yeah, I didn't think it would be that easy.
What was it like for you to have it be that simple?
You just don't believe it. You just can't comprehend it until you actually do it.
Okay, well, thank you.
And thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good time. It's a big world out there.
Yeah, yes it is. I'm going to find out about it too.
Yeah, well, maybe sometime you'll even make it out to the west. But don't drive to where I live.
It'd be kind of hard, wouldn't it?
That's right. It's a long drive through the ocean. Okay.
All right.